Okay, thank you very much for coming tonight. This is going to be a special presentation. I'm really excited about it. Buying and selling boats, and of course getting the survey. So if you own a boat, you got to get one of those anyway. Just curious, how many people are interested in buying a boat in the next year? Whoa! And how many people selling a boat in the next year? How many people getting a survey in the next couple of years? Pretty much everybody. Whether you like it or not. Okay, anyway, well, Hugh and Dan are going to present this, and well, you can explain about clay. So we'll try to wrap up about 5:15, and that's just, well, I'll let them explain how they're going to do this. But before I give up the microphone, I just want to let you know that we're going to have at the next membership meeting, the ship store will be open. I won't be here, but it'll be open. And there's going to be a speaker from Congressional Place, which is the new development. It's one of the new developments going across the street here, so it's a meet the neighbors. We don't want to throw any food at them, although we might be thinking about it. It's going to, the way we're working these things is that you submit your questions in advance, and Dave Booker's going to be running this. Submit your questions in advance to him. That way we can get through, you know, all the key things with the presenter and still do the regular membership meeting. So anyway, hope you will join the club for that. And I will turn it over to Q. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. For those of you who know me as Dawn's husband, there's a whole other side. I have been a licensed yacht broker for 23 years. I hold my 200-ton master's license, Coast Guard, and I'm also hold my training credentials with the National Boating and Safety Council as a training captain, deliveries, yacht refits, yacht management. So I was interested when I was doing this presentation. I kept telling Dawn, I said, I don't know if I'm missing something because I go into autopilot because I've been doing it for so long. And those of you who have worked with me probably have sensed some of that. And those of you who haven't, I'm always there for you as a resource. And then Dan, who I've been working with, has been involved in the marine lending side. So I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself.
Yeah, so I just got a position with a lender that lends on quite a bit of boats. I've been in the business 25 years between RVs and boats and everything, and great opportunity. Glad to be here.
So anyways, Joe had mentioned how many people have purchased a boat, sold a boat, but more importantly, how many people have actually had an enjoyable experience buying a boat? Raise your hands. And what about the side of selling? Has that been an enjoyable experience? Because that can be very stressful as well.
For me, yeah, I got a bigger boat.
Go ahead, sir. So what I did is I kind of.
You're off camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what I did is I kind of did this in a parallel, right? So we have the buyer getting ready to purchase the boat, and we have the seller getting ready to sell the boat. And there's boxes for each side of the page. So for the buyer, you know, and again, this may be kind of basic, but this is kind of what they go through psychologically. Am I looking at power or sail? How am I going to use the boat? Am I going to fish? Am I going to cruise? Am I going to liveaboard? Am I going to do long-range cruising, or am I just doing weekend getaways? Style and accommodation, right? That always plays in the part. How many people do you want a cocktail? How many people do you want to dine? How many people do you want to sleep? At the end of the day, the number of sleeping is always 2. No matter how big the boat, no matter how many staterooms you have. Budget. Are you going to be writing a check? Are you going to be financing? Okay, and I'm going to let Dan kind of speak about that. And then the type of boat or the model of boat you're looking at. one of the things that I always promote is if the boat is so great when you go to buy it, in terms of its model and accommodations and amenities, it should be equally as great when you go to sell it, right? So you have an exit strategy with the boat that you're looking to purchase. And then where are you gonna keep it? And can we get a slip where you wanna keep it? Okay, because there's been some changes in the market, which we'll talk about. On the lending side, there,
Yeah, there's a few things you wanna take into account. The age of the vessel is kinda tricky. The reason I got into what I'm doing now is, this particular bank finances boats up to 30 years. Typically, if it's older than 10, 15, 20 years, then you're gonna be tough to find a lender that, will lend on that boat. So, pay attention to that. Most banks go off of, what's called NADA, N-A-D-A, and that's a public website. You go on that NADA.com, type in the boat, type in the year, and that will tell you the value that the bank's gonna lend on. So typically, the banks, what we look for is, the wholesale value. And, I'm not supposed to tell you, but, we'll lend about 125% of the wholesale value of the boat. So it gives a little bit of profit for the guy selling it, and tax and license and all that. We require about 10% down. Most banks do about the same as well, about 10%. So pay attention to, the values, and when you're selling, kind of go off with that. Some lenders will go off with surveys as well, so that'll help out, with some of the boats. But anything older than 10, 15, 20 years, you're gonna have trouble, getting financed on, so pay attention to that. If you're selling something, it's gonna have to be cash if it's older than that, or especially lenders like, the one I work for, that go up to 30 years.
so what kind of rates are we looking at? Let's say up to 100,000, up to 200,000.
Yeah, so my particular bank, and most banks will end up to about 300,000 on the older collateral. I call collateral, that's your boat. And you're looking at about 9% right now for the best rates out there. Most people are about 10, 11%, which sounds high, but that's what it was, 15, 20 years ago. So that's, back where we're at now, just inflationary,
And what about something that's newer, say within 10, 15 years old?
Yeah, 10, 15 newer boats, you're looking, best rates I've ever seen out there right now are about, 6, 5.5, 7%. It's not working.
Who is it?
About 6% is gonna be the best rates out there right now.
It's our battery maintenance program. Give it to him and I'll give it to you.
All right, broker selection, something kind of near and dear to my heart, but, brokers play two roles. We act as seller's agents and we act as buyer's agents. So for the seller, this is the guy that's preparing the listing, prepare the specifications, the pictures, getting the thing ready to go on the MLSs, okay? And representing the vessel to buyers and other brokers and interested parties. Whether you're looking to list, or purchase, or sell, the thing that you need to keep in mind with a broker is first and foremost, check references. Through COVID, everyone and their mother decided that they wanted to either A, sell boats, sell houses, or sell RVs. And so everyone entered into this space. And as a result, we saw a decline in the quality of professionals in our industry. You as the buyer or seller, you check references, check professional credentials. Brokers have to be licensed in California with the Department of Boating and Waterways. There's only 2 states that require licensing, California and Florida. So we have to be licensed and we have to maintain a $20,000 bond in either state. You have the ability to also contact the state and look to see whether or not a broker has been in investigation or has any violations on their record. There's also levels of credentials. So for instance, nationwide, there is an accredited program called CPYB, which is Certified Professional Yacht Broker. In order to qualify with those credentials, you have to have at least a 9-hour class, and you have professionalism, moral conduct, forms, ethics, etc. And those are credentials that are recognized nationwide. You then have associations, California Yacht Brokers Association, the CYBA, YBA, which is Yacht Brokers Association, and then IYBA, which is Florida, or International Yacht Brokers Association. Again, each one of these associations has standardized forms and contracts to protect you, both the buyer and the seller, as opposed to someone just drafting it on their laptop. And so that's some of the advantages of working with a broker. Check out their experience, their expertise. Are they accustomed to selling 30-year-old boats? Are they accustomed to selling $2 million yachts? And last and foremost is find one that you trust, stick with them, and let them work for you. Because there's nothing more challenging than A, first finding a broker, and then B, going out and then cowboying around them, only to not have protection. Also, when you're looking to purchase, make sure you have support. Yacht Club wives, Yacht Club husbands, friends, family. When Dawn purchased her boat, now ours, she joined the Yacht Club first, and then got the support, and then she circled herself, surrounded herself with like-minded people. And then boating experience, okay? Do you have enough experience to operate the boat? Are you gonna require professional hands-on training? And have you already applied and received your California Boating and Safety Card? Now, I bring that up because who in the room has their California Boating and Safety Card? Okay. So it is California state law. You have to have one. So let's talk about it. Right now, anyone who is 50 years and under has to have their card. Next January, anyone under 60 years of age will have to have their card. And then in January 2025, all persons will have to have a boating and safety card. So, just a little plug for the state, but you do need to get it. It's a good practice. Yes, Joan?
Age 16, right?
16. Yep, 16 up, correct. So this program went into effect January 2018, persons 20 years of age or younger, and then anyone 16 has to have one for sure. And, yeah, yes,
Sorry.
yeah,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Is it true that like London Boat Rentals and Anchors Away, those guys do not have to have a card to rent? Is credit card captain?
So I can't speak for them. I can tell you that I'm one of the training captains for Carefree Boat Club and Freedom Boat Club. And we absolutely positively require that you have a California Boating and Safety
Yeah,
Card.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
The answer is yes, that they do.
They do need to have that
Rentals
card.
are not required.
Rentals are not required.
They're not required. You gotta think of this as like your driver's license.
I know, it's
But
kind
they're
of
not required.
counterintuitive.
That was, that's the state, bigger lobby than the voters.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Cool,
But
thanks for the.
but organizations like Freedom Boat Club and Carefree Boat Club that do the rentals, or vessel ownership, fractional ownership programs, they are requiring that you have the boating and safety card. And then lastly, in preparing for your purchase, there are multiple.
Question over here.
Yes.
But, so, Power Squadron, you gonna just, maybe we'll get to this later, but if they have a Power Squadron, certificate, they took a class, do they get, you still get a discount on their insurance?
Yes, so discounts are gonna come from the Power Squadron class, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and then right now, California Boating and Safety Cards are also being considered for discounts as well. But taking the Power Squadron class does not forego you from having your California Boating and Safety Card. And then as far as starting your search and shopping for there's multiple listing services out there. We have yachtroll.com, boats.com, yachtco.com, and then of course, boattraderonline.com. All right, so we have the buyer starting their search, and now we have the seller starting the process of selling their boat. So as a seller, we need to get ready for the open house. So what does that mean? Well, for starters, declutter and clean the boat. Remove all your personal effects. Keep those things that are needed for a weekend aboard. Less is more. Minimize and stage. Tim's laughing. This is what we went through.
She went through it, and I went through it.
Yeah, organize and clean. Think about it. As a buyer, you want to step on a boat and envision yourself, your stuff, your things on the boat, right? You don't want to be staring at someone else's personal effects. So you just got to minimize and stage it. Also, you're getting yourself ready to go to survey. Because right now, boats are not sitting on the market very long. We want to have clean bilges, clean machine spaces, clean our carpets, organize cabinets and soles and spaces, and label switches. That makes it a lot easier for the brokers and the surveyors. So if you've added an auxiliary pump or extra deck lighting or what have you, just go into the label maker and just label it so we know exactly what that does. Also on the seller side, you can do a pre-sale hull and or mechanical inspection. One of the things that we do is we bring mechanics out and we have them go right through the machinery and just tell us what the low-hanging fruit is. And let's clean it up, okay? And it also gives us a snapshot of what's coming. We may have a turbo that's leaking, or we have pinholes in the exhaust, or we have some cracked intake hoses. These are things that we want to know about ahead of time. Key, empty and clean and flush out your holding tank. So there's nothing worse than going on a boat for sale and you smell waste. Itemize repairs, services, and improvements. One of the things that Brad and Kim did that I thought was wonderful is, having owned the boat in their family for almost 30 years, is that they put together a binder and an expandable folder of all the records of the boat, all the manuals of the boat, anything that's been added to the boat, everything was right there. And that was a key selling feature for their boat, in that someone could step right on and they could start flipping through and see, oh, here's the in-mast furling, here's when we changed the rudder, here's when we did this is the last time we did a haul out. So they get to see the chronological history of the boat. And then assembling all and organizing all your vessel records, which we talked about. If you have vessel manuals, equipment manuals, receipts, anything and everything, have it available for the buyers to look at. Identify items that don't work or are problematic and repair. So we're going to talk about this. We're getting ready to go to survey, but we're also getting the boat ready to go to market. So it's kind of twofold. So we want to make sure that the bilge pumps work, the automatic flow switches work. If you have raw water pumps, service them, service the machinery. Certify your fire extinguishers and fire suppression systems. These have to be done annually anyways. So there's really no excuse for them not to be done. ABYC now requires that you install carbon monoxide and smoke alarms in all your sleeping quarters. So for everyone in this room, when you leave here tonight, go to West Marine, you gotta have, and if you get boarded, you gotta have smoke alarms and carbon monoxide sensors in your salon and your staterooms, anywhere that anyone can sleep. You have to have those.
Don't they have to be marine rated?
They have to be marine rated, yes, thank you.
It
So,
costs more.
a little bit. Flares have to be updated. So there's no provision with Coast Guard that you cannot have expired flares on board the vessel, so long as you have current flares, and just separate the two from one another. Organize your VFDs, make sure they're clean, make sure the tags are off your VFDs. How many people have the orange collars that they go and grab from West Marine and they still have the white, or the paper tags on them? Those need to be pulled off. The Coast Guard will flag you for that if you get pulled over.
No rips and tears.
No ribs and tears. Let's see what else we have here. Navigation lights work, waste pumps, water pumps work. And batteries, make sure your batteries are within their useful life and topped off, and then that they're not bulging, because they will get called out. Okay? All right, so let's talk now about the vessel sale and purchase process. And this is kind of from both sides of the table, as the buyer and the seller. So the buyer has selected the vessel, and in the course of selecting the vessel, we also want to identify the ownership of the vessel. Is the vessel held as a private party, or is it held as an LLC? So how many people are familiar with purchasing a vessel in an LLC? Okay. So we stumbled across, Brad, Kim, and I stumbled across a vessel for sale that was held in an LLC. What happens, we've been doing this for probably the last 20 years, is vessels of sizable value are placed in LLCs. And those LLCs own the vessel. So the vessel is the sole asset of the LLC. So we go in to purchase the vessel. We find out that the vessel is owned by ABC LLC. We in turn write in the contract that we reserve the right to purchase the LLC, of which Yacht A is the sole asset, free of all liens and encumbrances of this LLC. By purchasing the LLC, the ownership of the vessel does not change. Therefore, it is not a taxable transaction. So if you purchase the LLC, the vessel passes through to the next owner, and it is not recognized as a taxable transaction. So, food for thought. Yes?
Question about that. So, with specific, interest to Long Beach, does that mean that it doesn't need to change slips? Is that a way around this whole slip business in Long Beach?
So no, because the slip is, great question. I've tried that too. If there's a workaround, I've tried it. No, because the LLC changes, the insurance changes, so there's still that flag.
Follow up?
Yes,
So I have an LLC for my business, right? And the baseline for an LLC is given to me by the Tax and Fee Administration or whatever, is that for the privilege of doing business in the state of California, it starts at $800 per year.
okay.
Does that follow?
So essentially the LLC is a shell,
Right.
okay?
My question is, do they get taxed at $800 a year?
We don't keep it in LLC in California.
Okay.
Our LLCs that we do on vessels are in Wyoming, Colorado,
There you go.
Delaware, and Nevada.
Right.
Now, why do we do that? A, it's cheaper,
$10.
$10 from the lady in the pink.
Okay.
And being in Wyoming or Colorado, if you are an individual of high net wealth, there is no recording or registration of who owns that LLC. So if you happen to come across a boat, you see that it's owned by ABC LLC, there's no way of seeing who owns that LLC. So it's a layer of protection. Okay?
What if we have an LLC in California? We recently sold a primary notes in that LLC. We still have the LLC, it hasn't been closed. I'm looking to purchase a bigger boat. Can we put it in that
Absolutely. But I wouldn't even bother, just create the LLC in another state.
Not worried about that.
Now, so what happens if we're looking at a boat that's held in a California LLC? We buy that LLC, we dissolve that LLC, and we form another LLC in Wyoming, all in the course of our escrow. Non-taxable transaction. And we do that all the time because we do not want to own a California LLC, for one, and two, if there's any concerns on how that LLC was managed by the previous owner, i.e. charters, rentals, whatever the case may be, we do not want to inherit any of that debt or liability that they may be exposing us to. So, any other questions? And we'll talk more about that if we need to.
So scenario, so have you ran across where you got a private seller and you put it in LLC before the new buyer takes it?
So I have to be real careful about giving legal advice. The way you get around that is, as long as you have put that vessel in an LLC, so you're the seller and I'm the buyer, and you have a boat that you want to put into an LLC, that boat needs to be in that LLC before you list it for sale.
Any amount of time.
Two,
then
I cannot have any engagement with you prior to you putting that into the LLC. So it's a very, very fine line. Now, with, and if you don't mind, Kim, I'm just using you as an example.
It's okay, I'm new.
So, we purchased this LLC that had just, this vessel that was held in an LLC. The boat had literally just been purchased 5 months earlier by the seller, and then he met a gal and they decided they're gonna go buy a bigger boat together. So he put the boat into an LLC, then he decides he's gonna sell it. So now we are purchasing the LLC. We can do that so long as we make sure that he pays the sales tax during our transaction. So when we went to close escrow, we made sure that from the purchase of his purchase of the boat, we held money back and paid the state their sales tax. So that expunged and basically cleansed the transaction for them to step into the boat. Okay? So, and it's key that if you're gonna put a boat into an LLC, that you do have proof of sales tax being paid at some point during the course of your ownership. Okay.
So, I'm sorry, point of clarity. So when Brad and Kim bought that boat, they did not want to keep it in an LLC.
We bought that LLC.
You bought that LLC, but they're now holding it privately. I'm gonna be personal, but I'm just
So
saying.
Brad, so Kim is the president.
Uh-huh.
Bill
Always.
Brown is, he's a boy.
Now, in my life, Kim is the president, and Brad is the secretary.
I'm trying to understand the tax liability.
So, there's not gonna be tax liability.
Could you held money back in escrow?
Because the previous
Previous
owner,
owner never paid sales tax.
when he initially bought
When
the
he
boat,
initially
He bought the
formed the
boat,
LLC.
when he purchased the vessel,
Uh-huh,
we
it wasn't
did
an
not,
LLC at that time?
nope, he formed the LLC,
Okay.
and then we did not have any proof of him paying his sales tax.
he
Okay.
had 1 year to pay the sales tax.
Okay.
So we held money
Yeah,
in
yeah.
trust with the attorney to pay
I'm
sales
just trying
tax.
to understand it, because I think we did a misstep.
Okay?
And this was all done through attorneys.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I'm a licensed California yacht broker. I am not licensed to buy or sell LLCs. That's a securities exchange transaction, right? So when an LLC is involved, money is no longer escrowed by the yacht broker. Money is now escrowed by an attorney who was licensed to do these transactions. So now what happens is, he's doing the due diligence on the LLC. We're doing our due diligence on the vessel. through abstract of title, making sure that things are in good standing, free of liens, encumbrances, mortgages, etc. So we're doing the same thing on the boat as we are the LLC. Then, the LLC is either purchased, we're gonna purchase it, or we're gonna dissolve it and create another one. But now what we're going to do is we're gonna cancel the vessel purchase agreement, and we're now creating an agreement to purchase the LLC, which is called a MIPA, a Membership Interest Purchase Agreement. This is all done concurrently in escrow. So we're just shuffling tiles, right? So now brokers are no longer receiving a commission as a yacht broker, they're now receiving funds as a referral. And then the attorney then takes over, files the returns, he is then the agent of record, and then everything is then pushed through his office.
So that brings me to, there must be a purchase threshold where all of that gymnastics is worth it.
So if you are going to purchase an LLC, base price is about $4,500 to have that done by the attorney. So if you're looking at a $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 yacht, you wanna pay $330,000 in taxes, right, and not buy the LLC, or do you wanna pay $4,500 and buy the LLC?
Okay, so my question, I guess, is it, okay, you're buying a 100K boat that's in an LLC or whatever, the whole thing is a game to circumvent sales tax. Circumvent.
Correct.
Okay, so at what point does that threshold fall below where it's like, pay the tax?
If
I mean,
you-
attorney's fees, brokerage fees, all that kind of stuff.
So, that's a great question, because we don't normally see vessels less than 100,000 in an LLC.
Okay.
A, because it's a sophisticated transaction, and B, most people just don't really get involved in them. When we see LLCs are 200, 300, 500, 2 million and up,
Okay,
right? So,
thank you.
Does the LLC have any impact on property tax?
no, you are still gonna be paying property tax.
The main reason you get an LLC other than the tax thing is to limit your liability.
Limit your liability, and, cause normally what we see is if, like in Florida, if we see vessels in LLCs, they're doing charters. It may be a foreign flag vessel, it may be someone who is not a US citizen, they're gonna form Delaware LLCs. So, they're very prevalent. If vessels are in an LLC right now, and the vessels are probably 150 to 200,000, chances are they were formed 10 years ago when the vessel was 350,000 at time of purchase. And so now as time goes on and the value of the boat depreciates, so then does the value of the LLC, right? So that's really why we would see vessels today in LLCs. It was just a rare occasion that we happened to find Brad and Kim's boat that was sitting in one.
I think he did it to make it more desirable.
That will also, correct, that will also improve the resale of the boat as well. Yes, sir.
A little confused. Kim said that he formed an LLC, but he had 1 year before he had to pay the taxes.
Sales tax,
So-
the initial purchase.
So if a vessel is held in state document, in state title, right? So you have CFs on the side of your boat. It's a DMV transaction, it's like selling your car or buying a car. You have to pay sales tax at time of purchase, right? With a Coast Guard documented vessel, okay, it takes up to about a year for the state to catch up to you before you are on record to pay owe the sales tax. So this is what happens. Donna and, so Donna buys a boat, and Donna and Dwight buy a boat, and it's Coast Guard documented. Okay, we do a bill of sale. By the time the bill of sale is recorded with the Coast Guard back in West Virginia, and then Coast Guard then contacts the state of California to inform them that there's been a change of ownership. That's like 8 months right now, because there's so much backlog. By the time California even comes around to get to you, it's about a year. When they finally notify you, you've got 3 months thereafter to pay your sales tax. So I've seen people go almost 2 years without paying their sales tax. That's how
And this
long.
guy had only had the boat for 5 months.
Right, so we could not afford waiting for him to get his notice and then paying it. Because had he not paid that sales tax, they are now the owners of the
I
LLC.
would have to pay
They are now on the hook for that sales tax.
Okay, so built in was, he still had to pay the sales tax.
That's how we built that contract.
Got it.
So that's kudos to the buyers, right? I need to know that, they have that wherewithal.
Right.
Q had that work.
Let's see, so we talked about the LLCs, lender selection and loan pre-qualification. You wanna touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah, so you just wanna make sure the collateral's gonna be good for the lender. So find your bank, make sure that they're gonna finance the boat that you wanna buy. Again, it's collateral, so make sure the value's okay with the lender. And then credit score, that's a big deal. A little bit I wanna touch on that is, credit score and how they calculate that. It's kinda dumb, but it's an algorithm. So the more credit you have available, the higher your score is. So if you have a credit card with $1,000 balance, and you have $500 on it, your credit score is gonna go down. So you can literally just call the bank and say, hey, I need a $5,000 credit limit on my $1,000 credit card, and your score will jump up 200 points. It's ridiculous, just by changing the amount you have versus what you owe. That's pretty much the majority of how your credit score is calculated, is based on what you have available versus what you owe. So that's huge for us. So we're looking, number one, your credit score. Number two is your debt to income ratio. So most banks are looking about 40%, some banks will go to 50%. Debt to income ratio. So they'll take your income total, they'll add all your bills, and they'll say, okay, at 40%, that's all we're gonna finance, including the new payment. Some banks will go as high as 50%, including the new payment. So we look at that, and that's one of the big determining factors on what we'll loan out. Keep that in mind.
Okay, so we've got a lender, we're ready to make an offer. We have, in the industry, there are standardized, oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Dan?
Yeah.
Boats that are over 20 years old,
Yeah.
aren't they harder to finance?
They are hard to finance. There's lenders out there. The one I actually work for will go 30 years.
Mine was 23.
Yeah, the rates are gonna be a little bit higher, but that's all you're gonna look for, is find a lender that will finance an older boat.
and as the value of the boat goes up, you're gonna see thresholds where the rates start to go down. So up to 100,000, then 150, 200. So there's plateaus where they're gonna re-rate your loan.
Yeah, the higher the amount, typically the lower the rate.
Okay, so we're ready to make an offer. We've got standardized vessel and sale agreements, depending on the organization that the broker is affiliated with. These are all boilerplate. They're designed to protect the buyer, and they're designed to protect the seller. They are not designed to protect the broker. So they are not broker-friendly contracts. Once you've made an offer, you would have your offer based upon conditions. So if you have a financing contingency, for your sea trial, your hull survey, your mechanical survey. And lastly, make sure that you write into the contract that the vessel is insurable. We've had it happen where someone goes to purchase a boat and the survey is so bad, or there's been so many claims on that particular boat, say back in Florida, that the vessel cannot be insured. You need to have that ability to get out of the contract. I had this happen on a 68 Sunseeker Predator. The boat does just under 40 knots, and insurance companies absolutely do not like to insure on these boats. So for that reason, the guy had to get liability only. It was not written into the contract, so he was bound to then purchase that boat without insurance. Once the offer is accepted, you're required to put 10% into either a broker trust account or an attorney account if we're dealing with an LLC. And now we're gonna start selecting our surveyor. Surveyors have different levels of different associations and accreditations. Clay Lindsay, the surveyor I use a lot, is not with us today. He's suffering from a man cold, so couldn't make it. But he gave me talking points, and one of the things that's important is that whether or not you're dealing with a NAMS surveyor, National Association Accredited Marine Surveyor, that is a career surveyor. That is what they do for a living, okay? SAM surveyor is Society of Accredited Marine Surveyor. I could be a SAM surveyor. I go take a test and pay my fees and I'm a SAMS. And so you want to look at who's working for you, okay? Now, they work for you, the buyer, and they were paid for by you, the buyer. So the buyer is responsible to pay for all the surveys and all the inspections, okay? On a 40-foot yacht, that comes out to be about $3,500 by the time you're all said and done. All right, so we're in the deal. We've done our sea trial, our survey, our mechanical inspection, our hull survey. And so we hurry up and we wait. So we hurry up to satisfy the requirements of the contract, and now we wait for our reports. During this time, we're gonna be identifying our vessel inventory. What stays, what goes? Pots, pans, plates, dishes, microwaves, coffee makers, 13-inch Panasonic VHF combination TVs. Yes, I've had to buy a couple of those in my time. And tools, right? Also during this time, we're gonna be doing abstract of titles. We're doing searches, lien searches, checking for mortgages and encumbrances, not only on the vessel, not only on the vessel, but also the LLC. If the vessel has been to Mexico, thank you, Ken. Okay, any vessel in this room that has been to Mexico will have something called an MTIP, Mexican Temporary Importation Permit. That is good for 10 years. If your vessel has been to Mexico and you then decide to sell it, you are required to cancel that MTIP. If you do not cancel that MTIP and you sell the boat to a new buyer, new owner, and they then decide to go to Mexico, Mexico will not let them in. You have to cancel this little piece of paper. So. Yes?
Is that just if it was less than 10 years ago?
Yes. Yeah, and I had a vessel in contract where the guy kept the boat in Cabo for years on end. He was 82 years old. He didn't know if it was an MTIP or not. So there was, but it had expired. So that is part of our due diligence, is that we will contact Mexico to see if there's in fact a valid MTIP still on record. If there is, then we have to get the owner of record to then cancel it. Any vessel that's in San Diego, automatically we search. If it's a sport fish, we search. So we hurry up and wait. We finally get our report. It's from the hull survey. We're gonna get a list of recommendations. We're gonna get appraised value, fair market value. We're gonna get all the capacities, all the inventory on the boat, all the specifications from the manufacturer are all gonna be on one place. And then we're gonna start assembling our estimate for repairs. We're gonna put value to all these items, right? So these are all recommendations. My job is to go through and start putting the value to all this, to then go back to the seller and start renegotiating off the price of the boat for these repairs. We're also gonna, from that, we're also gonna have mechanical estimates from the mechanics, along with things that come up on our oil samples and fluid analyses and so forth. Then we're gonna negotiate those credits for repair, and then have our insurance selection. Now, the better the surveyor, the more stuff on the paper. the more stuff on the paper, the more stuff you have to repair in order to get your insurance and keep your insurance. So the insurance company is gonna take this survey, look at everything, and they're gonna say, well, we want all these items repaired before we'll insure the boat. Well, generally you have about 30 days to fix everything. It's on your word of honor that you're gonna fix these. So you basically send a piece of paper back and you say, on or about this date, I will have fixed these items.
That's all it takes.
Yep. If the boat sinks for any reason, and they go back and they see it's because a through hole was stiff and would not close, and they deemed that through hole failed, and you didn't fix it, no coverage. So they're looking for the loophole. Some insurance companies won't even talk to you if they see some of the surveys that we do. So we have to go to kind of B paper insurance, and then once we get the boat insured, then we'll work our way back over. Surveys also will look, or the insurance will also not only look at the survey review, but they're also gonna look at your operational experience. So, gentleman has a 42 Bertram and decides he's gonna go buy a 68-foot Bertram. He doesn't have the experience at 68 feet. So the insurance company is gonna say, Mr. Owner, we will insure the vessel, but we now are gonna require that you have a licensed captain on that boat for a period of no less than 1 year. It happens, it's happening right now, for 1 year, and such time until you can have 100 hours of hands-on training, and you get a letter of proficiency from a licensed captain who is trained to instruct. So, and Don will vouch, if I'm not out showing boats, I'm training clients. And then giving them a letter of proficiency. If for some reason, after I have signed them off, and they go and damage the vessel, or God forbid hurt someone, guess whose license is on the line? It all comes back to me. And the insurance companies are gonna hold me liable. So they have really, really cracked down on this. Right. So this is a change, we'll talk about this, but this is something that's been happening in the marketplace for the last 3 to 5 years, where owners are required to have at least 40 hours of hands-on instruction. And that's not 40 hours of us sitting there drinking a beer talking about the engine room. That's 40 hours of out on the water. That's what they want to see. Let's see, insurance, let me go into the loan approval, same thing. Dan and other lenders are going to be looking at the survey. They're looking at whether or not there's insurance on the vessel. And they're also going to want to look at the LLC and approve that. Okay. Then we're going to decide how we're going to own, or we're going to vest title. Are we going to invest it in a personal name, husband and wife, tenants in common, right of survivorship? Okay. And we're talking about documented vessels, not CF, right? State registered. Then we're going to need
One thing I learned too, on my own personal experience when I got my boat, is if you're gonna get a loan on the LLC, make sure it's in the LLC's name and not your own personal name. Because then the state will come back after you for the taxes, because it's not an LLC.
And once that LLC is named, you can't change the name.
Correct.
So my vote, my LLC will be Kia Ula.
And then securing a slip, same thing. We've all been through this. They want to see insurance. They want to see them, the marinas put down as lost payee. They're going to go through vessel inspection. Anyone that's had the privilege and pleasure of working with Adam understands that he's now a surveyor, looking through all the boats. And then ultimately fund and close, shots, champagne, celebration. Not going to belabor this. These are some of the advantages of working with a broker versus if you wanna do it yourself, you certainly can. Sometimes it's better, it is a stressful experience, I'm not gonna kid you. But it's better to let the broker bear the stress, majority of the stress than you. There's a lot of boxes to check and a lot of things that you have to manage. Okay, Seller's Guide to Seller's Guide to Survive Survey. I'm not gonna go through that list, but I'm gonna just read off some stuff to you. So here are 4 surveys on vessels ranging in value from 2.2 million, 3 years old, 120,000 and 500,000. Both sail and power. These are the things that are coming up on survey. Service and tag your fire extinguishers. Replace the life ring and the rope attached to it. Replace your expired flares. Ensure that steaming light, anchor lights, and nav lights are operational. Florida Coast Guard required trash placard. Anybody know what those are? Okay. So Coast Guard requires that you have placards. You have to have a waste plan. You have to have a oil discharge plan. You have to have a trash plan. There's stickers you get at West Marine, they have to be on the boat. If you get boarded by the Coast Guard, they want to see these placards on the boat. Also, you're required as a Coast Guard documented vessel to have your documentation number on a placard secured to a bulkhead on the boat. We got pulled over, and guess what we did not have on our boat? The documentation number on the bulkhead. I looked at Dawn, I'm like, Dawn, where is it? And she goes, oh my gosh, she goes, I get pulled over for that all the time. How sad, right? I'm in the business and I don't even know that we're missing a placard.
She always has cute girls around.
No, they wrote.
Through holes are too stiff. Okay, ball valves will not open. Ball valves are stuck open. Install rubber boots on the positive battery cables, your starter and batteries. Make sure those are done. Secure the batteries. Are the batteries in a box? Are the engines serviced? Can we see the date of service? These are things that are coming up on every single one of these surveys. Flares, fire extinguishers. You might have a navigational rule book on their boat. Good. Let's see. Carbon monoxide sensors, smoke alarms, throw ring, smoke detector, fire extinguisher, fire system, perform services. Oh, here's one. Waste tank vents are leaking. Waste hoses are sticky, right? These are all the things that come up. These are things that we should just be doing just in the natural course of ownership of our boat. How many people have their fire extinguishers certified every year? Oh, shame on you. Has to be done every year, guys. Have to recertify the fire system every year. And listen, I am happy to give you names and numbers. I can give you guys that'll come out and knock this stuff out for you every year. I set it on my calendar, and they come out every year.
Gordon's got a question.
Yes, Gordon.
Yes, sir. Halon, is it still legal?
Yep.
I bought a boat, it has Halon, I wanna get it serviced, and we were just having a discussion on our boat with Mr. Gardner, and seems to think that maybe that's not legal anymore.
You can service it,
Yes.
but you cannot install it new.
Yes, or refill.
Thank you.
Or resell it. I have a guy that can do it.
Okay.
That's done.
So this is stuff that, all these yellow lines are things that we're supposed to do annually on our boat. Exercise through holes, fire extinguishers, check batteries, okay? That's what drives surveyors mad. And if you notice that every one of these is in the top half of the survey, see the yellow? That's all the stuff that's called immediate action item. That's stuff that we're supposed to do anyway as a yacht owner. If you remove those 6 items from your survey, you're golden. The rest of the stuff, I get it. You're not gonna know whether or not hoses are cracked and what have you, right? Oh, make sure that the anchor is secured to the bitter end, that the bitter end is secured to the vessel, right? Surveyor's gonna ask. Make sure that there's a safety shackle, make sure that there's a lanyard, okay, or a painter line from the anchor to the cleat, or the Samson post, okay, that's required. What's next? Bilges are clean and dry, bilge hoses are not cracked, there's no standing water, waste, fuel, shaft seals aren't leaking or slinging, your machinery is serviced. When you service your engines, just take a Sharpie and mark it on the filter. Write the hours, write the date, okay? It's good to do just as an owner, right? Batteries, here's a real big one. Everyone has an opinion about batteries. So there's a saying, you can insult a man's wife, dog, house, car, but you cannot insult a man's boat, especially his batteries. Every yacht owner thinks that as long as their batteries, when they turn the 12-volt system on and it turns on, their batteries are fine. Fact of the matter is that wet cells are only good for 3 to 5 years, AGM, or 4 to 5 years, and wet and AGM are 3 to 5 years. So they have a life, a service life. So if you're getting ready, you want to own it, you're not going to sell it, run them for 6 years. I don't care. But if you're getting ready to sell and you haven't changed your batteries in 5 or 6 years, surveyor's going to call them out. And then you're going to have to pay for them anyways. So you might as well just do it.
What about lithium ion?
Don't even want to talk about that. Lithium ion right now, and I know we got some proponents in the room, lithium ion right now is a whole new technology in the marine industry. And it's scaring a lot of people, because if you watch the news, you see all the mega yachts, they're all burning because of lithium ion batteries. And there's a whole now series started with ABYC, American Boating and Yachting Council, that says at night when you go to bed, you gotta turn your charger off. So they do not want power going into these batteries while you're asleep. Case in point, the Conception, the Santa Barbara charter boat that went down. It was cell phones, lithium ion batteries, right? So Coast Guard's really getting tough on
No,
that.
that wasn't lithium ion, that's lithium, that's lithium ion, not lithium ion phosphate.
Okay, thank you.
Iron phosphate.
Iron phosphate.
Iron, yes,
Um,
exactly.
What it does is, it's just enough to raise the eyebrow that says, we probably need to look at this a little bit more closely.
So it wasn't the vessel's batteries, it was the phone, the ball and charger.
Correct, right, well, I didn't say the vessel batteries, phones, overcharged. Let's see, and also too, guys, the marine industry is so far behind the RV industry. We're not there yet. So if you're gonna sell a boat with lithium ion batteries, then it's gonna require the right surveyor to give you the blessing, and it's gonna require the right buyer, okay, that understands the technology. Keep going. All right, buyer's guide. All right, on survey, prepare to arrive early, prepare to stay late. It's gonna be a long day, because we're gonna be doing sea trial survey, mechanical inspection, haul out, all in the same day. So we're gonna start at 7:30 in the morning, and we're gonna probably finish at 4 o'clock, 4:30 at night. As you're going through the survey, don't try to remember everything that you hear. Don't try to remember all the deficiencies. At the end of the day, the surveyor is gonna do a recap for you, and then you're gonna get your findings, okay, with pictures. Remember, the mechanic and the surveyors work for you, not me and not the seller. Take lots of pictures, and just understand that this is gonna be the most stressful day of the whole process, okay? And above all, just keep picturing yourself in Avalon, drinking cocktails, listening to the church bells, and wondering which one of us is gonna be hosting happy hour. talked about the changes and challenges. Insurance is now requiring surveys. We talked about operators with limited experience now requiring additional training. Lenders having underwriting requirements and collateral requirements. As a whole, the yacht market still remains strong today. The COVID bump is gone. The values are now starting to kind of shake out to pre-COVID, but we're not seeing tremendous amount of discount on the boats. They've already kind of adjusted themselves. Boats are not sitting on the market that long, even in today's economic market and economic state. And slips, believe it or not, are more readily available. I know everyone in here has probably at some point gone from Shoreline to Alameda's pretty quick. Slips are opening up at Shoreline, there's slips at Cabrillo Way Marina. What?
Shoreline for skinny boats.
Skinny boats.
Not fat boats.
And there's a lot of slips still up at Cabrillo Way, big stuff. And even Marina Del Rey was able to get a 85-foot end tide. So for whatever reason, slips are opening up.
Some of the slips in San Pedro require a survey within the last 2 years of a boat over 20 years.
Yeah, and that also segues into, if you have not been required by your insurance company to have a refresh on your survey, it's coming. So they're gonna wanna start seeing surveys every 5 years on the older boats. And again, I can provide you with names of surveyors and such. That's all we have. I think we're right on time.
Question,
Yes.
do you care or dare to speak to insurers? Better, good, better, best? From a boat owner's perspective.
I'm sorry.
Good, better, best. Do you care to say, based on your experience, boats US
Oh,
versus
sure.
Chubb versus.
Absolutely,
or-
and I can speak to you not only as a broker, but as a yacht owner, where we started with one company, and then because we had our boat resurveyed from work that's been done to it, because we wanted a higher value of insured value. And so we went from State Farm, who we were previously insured with, to Geico Marine, which is Boat US.
Okay.
Markel,
I hate that lizard.
thank you. Markel, I've had Markel actually tell me that a 68-foot Bertram was not seaworthy and it could not leave the dock. Even though that boat was just in Catalina 2 weeks before we went to contract. So that leads into another conversation, and that is, if you're buying a boat that is currently insured with let's say Haggerty on an older boat, or is currently insured with Geico, or Progressive, or State Farm, and you buy the boat, okay, and you wanna go and just say, oh, well, you guys already insured the boat, brand new policy, brand new terms, brand new conditions.
Based on recent survey.
It's a whole new thing. So even though they may have insured a boat for 20 years, and you buy that boat, and you go back to them, that same insurance company will come right back to you and say, we're not insuring the boat, or we want this, and this done.
What would you say, so when we first bought Howley, we were insured by something called United Marine Underwriters, whatever. Familiar with that? Whatever. And whatever, they did it based on the purchase price of the boat, yada, yada. And then Hurricane Sandy happened on the East Coast, and they raised my rate and devalued the boat by 20 to 30%. And so then I went shopping for insurance, and I found, I'll just call them out, Ace or Chubb or whatever, and they were willing to take it back to the original survey at the purchase time, and insure it at that point. And to this date, they're still insuring it at that same rate. And I thought after Ian that for sure we would see a substantial increase, and we did not. I'm not trying to, this is not a commercial for them,
No.
that might sound like it, but I'm just saying, how would you expand on that?
What we're seeing right now is, as you are getting ready to go through your renewal, you will see a rate increase across the board. Where we would expect to see insurance rates go down over time, insurance rates are going up. Because we are paying for all the disasters that have taken place recently over the last 5 years, up to 10 really, with hurricanes and all the tropical storms. It's unfortunate, but that is in fact what's happening. There are certain carriers that have kind of been very good about it. Geico Marine's been pretty good about maintaining their rates. State Farm, I have a great State Farm agent that I work with in San Pedro, who will insure the older boats with less hassle.
Sure, mine. They just added it on. I'm like, I'm buying another boat, and they're like, sure, what is it? And they just, now I got 2 Catalina 42s on my policy. The new one's $100 more, but.
Chubb is a great company. A lot of the higher wealth worth boats are insured with Chubb. So.
Also, they may put restrictions on you. They may close up your travel area.
Right, so that happened with us. When we went to Geico, they said, well, you have to stay in the continental US and you have to stay from San Diego all the way up to Seattle. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna work for me because we wanna go to Mexico. So all it is a phone call that says, hey, on April 15th to May 15th, we're gonna head down to Ensenada and maybe further south. So they'll just bump your policy like $50 to then give you the additional coverage. So insurance companies are working with us, the owners, to expand our area. Most of the insurance companies are basically down to Todos Santos. That's kind of their reach, from Todos Santos all the way up to Point Conception. That's the line of demarcation. Anything else?
All right. Well, thank you very
guys.
much. This is great. I'm sure everybody learned something today. Yep, yeah, shaking your heads. Great. Well, thank you very much, both of you. Really appreciate your expertise. And Don?
Oh, and the slide flipper.
So Peter, we did, notes are posted somewhere. Where are the notes? Where did Peter go? Peter's over here.
This will be posted to YouTube and a link will be attached to it.
Yeah, and I have a PDF, guys, of the slides. So if you're interested, we'll put it on the website, and I can also email it to you as well.
When buying or selling, call you.
Thank you. But again, this wasn't a plug, it's more about.
But he does work really hard.
This is what I do, guys. So thank you for letting
But
us.
you need
Yeah, I
to know
never
from
see
the
it.
inside. Someone from the outside can't tell you all this, so that's really good information. There is going to be, we actually have 3 more dates reserved now for the Explorer Sundays. The next one's in May sometime. I can't remember the date. I have someone definite for a date in June. But there's the date in May, the date in September are open. So if you've been somewhere, you want to share your experience, or you've got some expertise you think everybody would enjoy hearing about, then let me know. And again, thanks very much. And we'll just go. Thank you.
Back in the boat.
That's how was that? Oh, this guy
Barely.